When you choose the category for your custom tag family, it exposes a list of standard parameters associated with the chosen category. We saw an example of this in the previous movie. In some cases, you will wish to include additional parameters that are not included on the standard list. It is possible to create your own custom parameters. To use custom parameters in the tag, they must be defined in a special external file. Such parameters are called shared parameters, and they are the subject of this movie. So what I have on screen here is a file called roomTagFinishStart, and it's the start of another room tag. So similar to the previous movie, if we took a look at the category for this particular family, you can see that it's already assigned to room tags. Now, these two labels here, if I edit the label, are using the pre-built list. So this particular one uses the base finish, and this one here is looking at the floor finish right there, and those two are from the pre-built list. What I want in these four wedges here is 4 wall finishes pointing at the various walls, so that when you place this room tag in the wall, you can say what the north wall is or the east wall and so on. The out-of-the-box label would only give me access to a single wall finish parameter. I would not get access to wall parameters on the 4 sides. It turns out here in the Edit Label dialog, however, that you have a Add Parameter button down at the bottom. Now, if I choose that, what you're going to see is a Parameter Properties dialog appears, and grayed out here in the background, it's going to say that the parameter you're creating has to be a shared parameter. So what is a shared parameter exactly? Well, we have different kinds of ways we can define parameters in a Revit file. There's really about 3 different ways. We can define the parameters directly in a family file. We can define them in a project file, or we can define them as a shared parameter. That's perhaps the most flexible way to do it. You can see here in the grayed out text, it says they can be shared by multiple projects and families. They can be exported to databases, and they can appear in schedules or tags. So it's perhaps the most flexible way that you can create a custom parameter. But it does take a little bit of setup. And in order to do the setup, we have to have either an existing shared parameter file or we have to create one. Now, I'm going to walk through the process of creating one, but I want to stress here that we've actually jumped right into the deep end of the pool here, and this is a somewhat advanced topic. You should check with your CAD or BIM manager before you create your own custom shared parameter file to make sure that there isn't already one in existence at your firm. There should only be one shared parameter file for the entire office. It's called shared for a reason. We want everybody to share the same shared parameter file. And in doing that, then we all access the same list of parameters. If multiple shared parameter files become available, it's not going to work so well. So when I click that button, it's going to say I have not specified a shared parameter file, but it's going to offer me the ability to choose one now. So I'm going to go ahead and say yes. And that brings up the Edit Shared Parameters box where I can either browse to an existing shared parameter file. And again, if your CAD manager tells you that one does exist, that's what you want to do. Or in this case, I'll just go ahead and create one in my Chapter 2 folder here, and I'm going to call this LDC Shared Parameters. And I'm going to save this. Now, that creates an empty text file. All a shared parameter file is a text file on your hard drive. Now, it's a very specially formatted text file. It's not one you want to open up and edit directly. You want to edit it only through the Revit interface or some other appropriate shared parameter editing tool. Shared parameters are organized into groups. You can see because I just created, there are no groups, so I can add one. And I'll call this rooms. So in this rooms group, I'm going to group all of my room-based shared parameters, and I'm going to create 4 new parameters here. So the first one is going to be north wall, and the kind of parameter can be anything that I like. In this case, if I just want them to be simple text designations, the 2 best choices would either be to choose text or to choose material. If you actually want to designate materials from your material list, you can choose material. But in this case, I'm going to keep it relatively simple. I just want a text designation, like a material code rather than an actual material. So I'm going to choose north wall, and I'm going to make it a text-based parameter. And then I'll repeat that 3 additional times to make east wall and south wall and west wall. So I now have these 4 parameters defined. They're all text parameters, and they're defined for the 4 walls of the room. I'm going to select the north wall parameter, and I'm going to click OK. It's going to say choose the parameter from the list. So to understand what we've just done, I'm actually back now in the edit label. So when I clicked OK, I created the parameter file, but now it's saying which parameter do you want to use for this label, and the one I want to use is the north wall. So I'm going to click OK. And you'll see that it fills in all of the information here automatically for me based on the shared parameter that I defined. I'll click OK one more time. And now north wall appears on the list, and I can add that to my label. I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to put in a sample value of P1 and click OK. And so what I have here is a label that I'm going to position, maybe shrink this down just a little bit. Instead of 1/8 inch text, I'm going to choose a predefined 3/32 inch label type for it. And that gives me my first finish here. So basically the process to create the next ones is similar. Actually, I have this in the west wall, and I defined it as north. So let me move it over here. That's a little better. So now that's my north wall parameter. So let's repeat the process. I go to Label, choose my label type, select where I want it to go. So I'm going to click New again to add a parameter. Now this time I can click Select, and rather than getting the dialog that said, where is your shared parameter file? Do you want to browse to it or create it? It already knows where the shared parameter file is. So now I can simply just choose from that shared parameter file I previously created, and I want to make this one the east wall. It fills in all the information for me. Click OK, add that to my label, call this P1 again. P1 is just a sample value, so I can use P1 all 4 times, and then continue. Now once I've defined the 4 parameters and added them roughly to the correct spots, once again I can reduce the grip size here, make it a little smaller. I can kind of position it a little bit better just to kind of fine-tune everything. And so that completes the setup of the tag. Now I can do a save as, and I'll just take off the word start at the end here. So I'll call this room tag finish. Check that I'm only doing 1 backup. Click OK, save it, and then I'll load it into my testing project. The view is called Level 1 Finish Tags, and you can see that I've stripped off all the room tags in this particular view. I can go ahead and place the tag here into the various locations. And this one doesn't show name or number, so we're not seeing anything appear. We do see V and C appear in this case because this room here has a designation for the base finish as V and the floor finish as C. This room does not have any finishes designated at that point yet. So if I came over here and the base was, say, a wood base, and the floor finish was also a C, when I apply that, both of those would fill in. But now if you scroll through the list here, where are my custom parameters? I'm not seeing my 4 wall finishes showing here at all. Well, I'm in a different project file now. So what I have to actually do is tell this file to also access that shared parameter file. Now, I don't want to define the file again. Remember, we want one shared parameter file that we're going to use for any project or any family throughout our office. But I do have to tell the room objects in this project that they should look at that shared parameter file for the custom parameters. So let's go ahead and do that now. So I'm going to go to the Manage tab. And here you're going to see a couple buttons. There's a Project Parameters button, and there's a Shared Parameters button. Shared Parameters is the button you would use to actually access the shared parameter file. Notice that it already knows that I have a shared parameter file in the Exercise Files Chapter 2 folder. That's the one we just created together. It already knows about this file. It already knows about the 4 parameters in that file. So I'm going to cancel there. There's nothing to do there. But that's the first step that we've already done. The second step is to go to the project parameters and actually add those shared parameters to the room objects in this project file. So when I click Add, you can now see that there are 2 choices here, project parameter or shared parameter. A project parameter would not be connected to the shared parameter file. It would be global across the entire project, but it would not be connected to the shared file. I want to choose the shared parameter file. And I want to click Select, and I want to select my north wall. That fills in all the information just the way we would expect. I'm going to group that under Materials and Finishes because that's what this type designation represents, this text field that I've done. And very important, I want to come over here and I want to assign that shared parameter to the room objects in this project. I'm going to click OK. North wall now appears, and I just need to repeat that process 3 more times for the 3 additional parameters. So I have the 4 parameters now defined: west wall, north wall, east wall, and south wall. I'm going to click OK. And now if I go in and select any one of the rooms in this project, here under Materials and Finishes, you'll see those 4 wall designations appear. And I can come in here, put in P1 for the north wall, P2 for the east wall, P2 also for the south wall, maybe P3 for the west wall. Click Apply, and those parameters will fill in. As an additional bonus to creating parameters as a shared parameter, they would also appear in a schedule file. Okay, so in the project, I already have a room schedule wall finishes. In that schedule, I've added in the 4 missing columns, and as you can see, those columns are already reflecting the finish designations that we previously put. If I change designations here for some of the other tags that are in here, in this case I have only one other existing example of this tag, I could do that, and I could return to the floor plan, and you'll see that those designations are filled in. So shared parameters allow us to define a set of parameters externally to any project or family, and then share those parameters among any project or any family throughout the office. They do have to be defined very carefully. Please make sure that you have only one shared parameter file for the entire office to share and use, thus the name. So if you're unclear about how to use it, just keep reminding yourself that it's actually called a shared parameter file, and that should help. And make sure that it's up on an accessible location somewhere up on the server. And then you'll be able to create custom tags and/or schedules that refer to those shared parameters.